One of the best parts about drawing with a computer is you never have to draw the same thing twice. You can just reuse your geometry. The same concept applies to layouts. Once a layout has been configured, you can reuse it to print any other drawing. In this lesson, we'll print a drawing using a pre-configured layout. On my screen, I have some geometry that represents a fire hydrant detail. Now, I've not yet configured a layout to print this geometry. I'd like to print this drawing on an 8.5 by 11-inch sheet with a title block. Rather than creating a brand new layout from scratch, I'd like to reuse a layout from a previous exercise. To steal a layout from an existing drawing, I'm going to right-click on the Layout tab and I'll select From Template. By default, AutoCAD will show us the template files inside the template directory. I'm going to change the files of type to DWG. I will then jump out to the desktop where my exercise files are located, and inside the Printing DWGs folder, I'm going to select this drawing, the finished example from the previous exercise. In the Insert Layouts dialog box, I'll see a listing of all of the configured layouts in that drawing. Now, each of these represents an 8.5 by 11-inch sheet, so I can use any of them. I'm going to select Post Floor Plan and I'll click OK. When I do, you can see that layout has been added to my drawing. Now, even though the floor plan geometry shows up in the thumbnail, that line work did not go along for the ride. The only geometry that's included is the geometry that exists on the Layout tab. I'm going to open the Layer control and I will turn the viewport layer on. Because I remember that layout included the viewport, I'll then double-click the mouse wheel and do a zoom extent such that I can see my drawing. Next, we'll set this to a measurable scale. Since the units in this drawing are set to decimal inches, I'll be using the scales at the top of the menu. Let's try 1:1 first. It looks like that isn't going to work. I'll open the menu and select 1:2. It looks like that's going to work perfectly. So I'll come down and click the padlock to lock the viewport. I will then double-click outside the viewport boundary to get my cursor back on the Layout tab. I will then open the Layer control and will turn the viewport layer back off. Now I can come down and rename the layout. I'll call this Hydrant Detail. I can then zoom in and edit the text in the title block. We'll call this KBW Waterman Installation. The title will be Hydrant Detail, and I'll change the scale to 1:2. When I'm finished, I'll do a zoom extents. At this point, the majority of my work is done for me. From now on, whenever I want to print this drawing, all I have to do is come up and click Plot, and then OK. Since this layout is configured to plot to a file, I'm going to save it to the desktop. I'll keep the default name and I'll click Save. When finished, I'll right-click on the Plot and Publish icon and choose View Plotted File. You can see a finished example of the drawing on screen. Now that you've seen how this works, consider creating some generic layouts with title blocks called 8.5 by 11, 11 by 17, or any other size you typically print to. Place all of these layouts in a single drawing, and then save the file on the network. From then on, whenever you need a title block, you can simply insert one from the layout drawing and most of your work will be done for you.